everybody, this is Miss Stacy from Monroe Street Art Center. Today I am going to be showing you all how to make these amazing and spooky Halloween scenes using oil pastels and watercolor paint. I had so much fun making these and I can't wait to show you how to do them also. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Alright friends, so we're going to go ahead and get started with this project. In front of me I have my watercolor paints, my watercolor paper, and my oil pastels. Two other things that you'll need for this project are a small cup of water and a paper towel to wipe your paintbrush off with. I'll show my sample again. In the end, your art will look a little bit something like this, although the colors may be different, and that's totally fine. Now what we're doing today is a wax resist piece of artwork. Now what that means is that once we put the oil pastel onto this paper, the watercolor paint that we paint over it will go around it, meaning it will resist the watercolor paint. Okay, so that's going to enable us to draw our moon, our tree, and our hills. This will be the wax resist portion of the artwork. So I'm going to get started drawing my full moon. Now, for this, you can either use yellow or white. I'm going to use yellow today because it shows up a little bit better for this tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now you can place your moon on either side of the paper, it doesn't matter. Now you can make a full moon, you can make a crescent moon. Feel free to use your own creativity. So go ahead and color that in with your yellow oil pastel. Once we finish the full moon, we're going to go ahead and grab a black oil pastel and begin drawing our spooky tree and our rolling hills. Now, for this step, I'd like you to go a little bit closer to the bottom of the paper, maybe 1/4 of the way up, and we're going to begin drawing our hills. Now these can be in any shape that you like. We're going to be drawing a curved line across our paper. Okay, and the idea is that we want it to look like there are hills. So let's start this curved line. Then we're going to go ahead and color that in, just like we did with our moon. So the first thing we're going to do is make the tree trunk. So let's start by drawing a line. Now, since this is a spooky tree, we want to reflect that in the curves that we draw on the tree. So think of a curvy, bent tree versus a tree with a straight tree trunk. And keep that in mind as you draw your lines. Now we're going to draw a line right next to that one. And what I like to do is make my tree trunk a little bit wider at the bottom and have it get a little bit thinner on the top, like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and color in my tree trunk. All right, everyone, wonderful job. Now, time for the tree branches. What I like to do is start with about 3 or 4 big branches and build off from there with smaller branches. For example, I'm gonna draw here. And remember, keep your lines to be curvy to represent a spooky tree. So it helps to start by drawing lines and then making the lines a little bit thicker. Remember friends, this is a spooky Halloween tree. So we're gonna keep our tree branches nice and curved. Now from there, we're gonna start with this tree branch, okay? And I'm going to add a few more small branches with very curved lines. Now I'm going to go down to this branch and I'm going to add some smaller branches onto this one. I start with a line and then I simply fill it in and make it a little bit thicker. I'm going to make a little bit of a longer line here. Remember friends, use your own imagination. If you would like to add your branches in different spots or in different types of curves, you may do that. Now for the last branch. I'll make a branch that's curling almost around the moon. And last but not least, I'm gonna just add a little branch right here on the trunk of the tree to finish it off. Very good, everybody. Now we are done with our oil pastels for this project. Now we're going to move on to watercolor. Now remember, it's okay to paint the watercolor over the oil pastels. It will not ruin them because the oil will resist the water and it'll push it away. So as you paint your spooky background with watercolor, don't worry about painting over the oil pastels. That is completely okay and it won't ruin your artwork. Now because this is a spooky Halloween scene, I'm choosing to do colors that are not very traditional. Something you wouldn't look up in the sky and see. For this one, I think I'm gonna go with some red. So I'm gonna take my paintbrush, first to dip it in some water. See this right here? This is what you're gonna use to mix your colors if you decide to. Now to pick up color from your watercolor paints, you need water, so you're going to take it, dip it into the color that you want. Add more water if you need to. And then what I like to do is go back here and kind of get the paint to the right consistency, right? To where it's going to be easy to paint it onto the paper. After that, you're going to rinse your paintbrush off. And before you put any watercolor paint on to your watercolor paper, you're going to get your paper wet with just water. This is a watercolor painting technique called wet on wet, where we're going to be painting wet paint on top of water. And it's going to give us kind of a tie-dye looking sky that looks cloudy and gives it even more of a spooky feel. Okay, so get your paintbrush wet and begin putting water on your watercolor paper. All right, my friends, now that your watercolor paper is wet, you're going to go back to your watercolor palette and you're going to pick up some of that red paint with your paintbrush and begin painting the color onto your watercolor paper finally. For this type of painting, I like to use very light and loose brush strokes with my watercolor paintbrush. I'm going to go ahead and pick up some more paint, wetting my paintbrush first. One other really neat thing about watercolor paint is that you can make it lighter or darker. If you'd like more of a lighter red, you're going to add more water to the red. See? Whereas if you want a darker wash of paint, you're going to use less water. And for this spooky painting, I really like some of the areas to be darker than others. It really adds to a spooky feel. So my friends, continue painting your background and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, everybody. Now that I have a layer of watercolor paint on my watercolor paper with some lighter areas and some darker areas, I'd like to add one more color before I'm done. Remember, this is a spooky Halloween sky, so I'm not going to use colors traditionally seen in the sky. I think for my second color, I'm going to add some purple paint. But first, I'm going to put a little more water down on the paper before I add the color. And I'm going to do this so that the paint spreads around more easily and adds kind of a cloudy looking feel to the painting. Then I'm going to go ahead and pick up some purple paint. And I want this purple to be pretty dark. So I'm not going to add a whole bunch of water to it. To lightly paint my purple in with quick light brush strokes. I'm going to get some more water to put into the purple paint to activate it, which means to get more paint out of the palette. I'm kind of just gonna put the purple in some areas, but not all. I'm gonna go in and add a little more red. Now, as we're finishing up, everybody, I want to say that you may do a painting that looks exactly like mine, or you may use your own imagination and come up with the colors that you want to use. They don't have to be purple and red. There are other spooky colors you can use, like blue, green, even yellow. Now for my finishing touches, I'm going to go in and add a couple more areas with some dark red just to make it look extra spooky. All right, my friends, here is the finished product. I don't know about you, but I love painting with watercolor. It's super relaxing. Watercolor paint is so fun. There's so much you can do with it. So I encourage you to take your time and experiment with different techniques. And above all, have fun. Friends, I want to thank you for doing this project with me today. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. I'd love to see your artwork. So when you finish, feel free to share with us on our Monroe Street Art Center Instagram and Facebook pages. All right. Thanks for being with me today and have a great day. Bye-bye.